The axe comes down and a man's collarbone stops existing. Another steps up to take his place and the axe is already moving again. Behind the axeman, planks are cracking under the weight of everyone trying to reach him at once, and none of them can, because the bridge is 3 men wide and he is standing in the middle of all 3 lanes at the same time. Somewhere behind him, his own army is falling apart in the open field, and he is the only reason the English haven't finished the job yet. He has no name that anyone bothered to record. He has a helmet, a chest full of scavenged mail, and by this point an English corpse for every plank he's standing on. This is the Battle of Stamford Bridge, September 1066, and the man in the middle of it has already been fighting alone for longer than he should have survived. The Saxon army under King Harold caught the Vikings scattered, half their force on the wrong side of the river, unarmoured, unprepared, being cut down where they stood. The rest should have died with them. They didn't, because one man decided the bridge ends here and made it true through sheer refusal to move, for long enough that the Vikings on the far bank had time to do the one thing that might save them, form a wall. It didn't save him. The chronicles claim it eventually took a Saxon soldier floating underneath the bridge in a barrel, spearing up through the gaps in the planks, to finally put him down, which is either the most resourceful kill in medieval warfare or the detail a storyteller adds 2 centuries later because he just got tired isn't a good enough ending. Probably both. He is not the last man history is going to ask to do this. 5.5 centuries earlier, another man had already done this on a different river. Horatius Cocles. Rome, 508 BCE. An Etruscan army under Lars Porsena is pouring toward the one bridge into the city, and behind him work crews are hacking through the pilings, trying to drop the whole structure into the Tiber before the enemy reaches the far bank. He has one working eye, the other lost long before this day. Nobody bothered to record how, which means half the world simply doesn't exist for him. The first man who tries him works that out the hard way, comes in fast on Horatius's blind side, certain he's found the opening, and never sees the shield rim that meets his jaw before his sword is even level. He goes down off the edge of the bridge into the water. Horatius hasn't turned his head. He didn't need to. A man attacking from a direction you can't see still has to stand somewhere, and there's only one angle the bridge lets him come from. 2 other soldiers are holding the crossing with him, but the planks are giving way fast now, cracked loose one at a time behind all 3 of them, and Horatius sends the other 2 back across while he's still killing. A spear comes for his ribs, and he turns it wide with his shield boss and puts his own blade through the gap it leaves. Another man swings for his skull and only clips the helmet and pays for the miss immediately. By the time the last support beam finally cracks, he's alone on what's left of the bridge. The whole Etruscan vanguard stacked up at the far end, unable to reach him more than one at a time, and he doesn't wait to see whether the timber holds. He drops into the current in full armour, weapons and all, and swims for the far bank while the bridge, and everyone still on it, goes into the Tiber behind him. Notice the mechanism repeating already, twice 2,500 years apart. It's not superhuman strength doing the work in either story, it's geometry. A bridge doesn't care how big your army is, it only lets a few men fight at a time. An army is a number, a battle is a doorway. China gives us a case with far better sourcing. Dian Wei, bodyguard to the warlord Cao Cao, at the Battle of Wancheng in 197 CE. Cao Cao's camp is overrun in a surprise night attack. Tents on fire, horses loose, men still finding their weapons in the dark while enemy soldiers are already inside the perimeter. Dian Wei, according to the records of the 3 kingdoms, not folk memory, grabs weapons from the fallen and holds the gate alone so his commander can escape, fighting until his spear breaks, then his sword, and finally when he's out of everything else, using 2 enemy corpses as clubs before he's overwhelmed. He dies. It's not a rescue story with a twist ending where he makes it out. It's a delaying action, and it worked exactly as delaying actions are supposed to. Cao Cao survived the war, and decades later went on to found one of the 3 kingdoms that gave the era its name. Dian Wei didn't get an epilogue. He got a gate. Smaller scale now, and a story most people outside Scandinavia have never heard. Battle of Virta Bridge, Finland, 1808, Russo-Swedish War. A Swedish column is pulling back under pressure, and one soldier, sometimes named Zacharias Bong in the folk telling, a big, slow-witted man the rest of the unit reportedly wrote off as useless, is left behind to cover the crossing while everyone else falls back. He ends up alone on the bridge against advancing Russian troops, and instead of being brushed aside in the first minute like everyone expected, holds the span by main force, buying enough time for the retreat to actually work, and for reinforcements to arrive. The historical record is thinner here, and the details shift depending which version you read, which is exactly what a story looks like halfway between event and legend. One foot still in the documents, one already in the ballad. It got turned into a poem. Sven Duva, decades later, and the poem is honestly better remembered than the man. Now the paperwork gets a lot more solid, because we jump into an era with medal citations and eyewitness statements taken under oath. Alvin York, Argonne Forest, October 1918. His patrol walks into a German machine gun position and gets shredded, most of his unit killed or pinned in the opening minute. York, a Tennessee marksman and a man who tried to get out of the draft on religious grounds, ends up more or less alone against the position, picking off German gunners one at a time with a rifle, then holding off a bayonet charge with a pistol, using a trick he'd learned hunting turkeys back home. Shoot the ones in back first so the ones in front don't know to scatter. By the time it's over, he and the handful of survivors from his unit have taken 132 German prisoners. One man's Sunday school aim, applied to a battlefield, is somehow the least metaphorical entry on this list. Fast forward to January 1945, the Colmar Pocket, France. Audie Murphy, a farm kid from Texas who was rejected by the Marines and the Navy for being too small and got into the army only after lying about his age, watches 6 German tanks and a couple hundred infantry advance on his company's position, orders his men back to the tree line, and then, rather than following them, climbs onto a burning, abandoned tank destroyer that could go up in flames at any second. He single-handedly holds off the advancing force for close to an hour using its mounted machine gun, standing in the open on top of a vehicle that's already on fire beneath him, calling in artillery on his own position by field phone, while he does it because the Germans are close enough that there's no other way to stop them. When the gun finally jams and the ammunition runs out, he climbs down and walks away wounded rather than being carried. He'd go on to become one of the most decorated American combat soldiers of the entire war, and then oddly a movie star, which means the guy who actually did this later got paid to reenact slightly smaller versions of it for a camera. April 1945, and things get almost absurd. Leo Major, a one-eyed Canadian sniper who'd already lost the eye to a phosphorus grenade and refused to be sent home for it, is scouting the Dutch city of Zwolle with one other soldier when his partner is killed. Rather than retreat and report back, Major decides to take the city. Alone, he moves block to block through the dark, firing from doorways and alleys and shifting position after every burst, so the echoes make it sound like a whole squad is moving through the streets, capturing German soldiers in 2s and 3s along the way, and talking a group of drunk SS officers into surrendering at a bar. Then he sets fire to the SS headquarters itself, which is the detail that finally convinces the garrison commander he's facing a full Canadian advance, rather than one man with a grudge, and by morning the Germans have withdrawn and Zwolle is liberated, by one very tired, very furious man with one eye and an idea. The Dutch still mark the anniversary. Last stop, 1948. The newly partitioned subcontinent, the mountains above Tithwal in Kashmir. Piru Singh, a company Havildar major in the Indian Army, is leading an assault on a fortified ridge when the men around him start falling to machine gun fire. He keeps going alone, clearing one enemy post with a grenade, taking a head wound, and charging the next post anyway before he's killed at point-blank range. His unit takes the ridge behind him. He's awarded the Param Veer Chakra, India's highest military honour, posthumously, a medal literally named Wheel of the Ultimate Brave, instituted only the year before, and he's among its first recipients, which means the newest country on this list already had, within a year of independence, a name for exactly this kind of death.